With free agent decisions pending the Chicago Bulls, we're going to talk about the biggest candidates to sign Coby White away from the Chicago Bulls. We're also going to dive into the mailbag. We'll get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. If you want to follow the show, you can do so at Bulls Central Pod. If you want to follow me personally, you can do so at CEO Hayes, the CEO Haize. It's Sunday, so it's a mailbag day. Also, members, I know since the season slowed down, I was not post a members only video. You will be getting a members only video before the end of today. But with that being addressed, going into free agency, one of the biggest questions for the Chicago Bulls, it's what's going to happen with Coby White. And I want to talk about some of the bigger candidates that are a threat to sign Coby White away from the Chicago Bulls. And the first one I want to bring up is the Brooklyn Nets. Now, when you look at the Brooklyn Nets, and if they decide to go full youth movement, right, that is betting on Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, they could absolutely be looking to sign Coby White and adding him to that young core that they have down there, right? They're also a team that isn't probably going to have very many expectations. They can be, yes, they were a playoff team this year. They're probably going to be more so fighting for play-in position next season. But if they believe in the youth movement of this team and they're going to try to, win some games while also having those first-round picks that they got back for their stars that they traded away, the Nets could absolutely look to add a talented guard in Coby White next to Spencer Dinwiddie, move Mikal Bridges back to the 3 position, side kind of everyone down in that area, and have a pretty solid lineup of just people who are all solid defensively, offensively, who also can, pass, move the ball around. That could be a fun offense to watch down there. And with the Brooklyn Nets set to have, I think, about $30 million in cap space, they absolutely could look to potentially bring in Coby White to that team. The next one up that I think is the next biggest threat is the Utah Jazz, especially if Jordan Clarkson does leave in free agency. I do look at them as being, much like with the Brooklyn Nets, youth movement kind of going down there. Don't have very many expectations. They have so many draft picks coming in though that it may hurt them as far as their ability to really try to add to their roster. Yes, they have a couple of roster spots open. I think they can have as many as 3 or 4 roster spots open, but they got a number of picks coming in over the next few years. And would they want to attach that type of money to a player that they very well may draft somebody that they see more of a future with? But I do think that the Utah Jazz could be looking to maybe make an acquisition, and Coby White could be that acquisition. Next up is the Charlotte Hornets. Now, the Charlotte Hornets are the biggest question mark on this list for me. They are the third list and the final one on this final team on this list. And the reason why I say that, they do have $30 million in salary cap space coming up. Kelly Oubre is a free agent, and he could potentially leave as well. You look at adding him to LaMelo Ball. If they end up bringing back Bridges, that's another thing. If Miles Bridges, if they do have a reunion there and bring him in, but they could look to sign a young, talented guard who can play off ball or on ball, and that could, pair nicely with LaMelo Ball. That could be a target. But much like I said with the with the Utah Jazz, they have only so many roster spots open, and they got draft picks coming in as well. They may just not have the now. It's not hard to open up a roster spot. If you do, they have some unguaranteed contracts down there, but that may be one of the things that hurt them on potentially going after a Coby White. But that's just kind of some of my thoughts process on it. And some of the people that could be looking to sign Coby White. That's not to say that some of these other teams may not either. You never really know what moves may happen at the draft to kind of open roster spots, open up some more salary, teams using, trading out their draft pick and bringing in salary. So you just never know with that. But, Coby White, I think while there are teams with cap space, there are only so many teams that really make sense to try to go after Coby White for long-term money. I almost put the Detroit Pistons on this list, but really when you look at it, Cade Cunningham coming back. They got Jaden Ivey down there. Yeah, 3-guard rotations are a thing in the NBA, and they could look to add him again to another youth movement down there. But again, I don't necessarily see them being a team that may do that. Again, I could be wrong. But I think I feel pretty confident that the teams that I put on the list are going to be teams that are interested. The Spurs could be another one. We've already talked about them a little bit. They could have cap space, and depends on what they decide to do with their roster going forward. They still have to spend a certain amount of money, so that could put them in the Coby White sweepstakes as well. But I don't know. Hey guys, let me know what you guys think on it down below. Do you think that do you think there are any other candidates that could look to potentially sign away Coby White from the Bulls in this offseason? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. All right, let's go ahead and get into the voicemails for today. This first one coming up, we got 3 for today. This first one coming up, this one's from Josh.
What up, guys? My name is Josh, and I just really want to leave out a couple of things that as a Bulls fan, have really been bugging me. Especially with free agency, I think there's like such a big deal this year, especially if we end up signing Vucevic for less than 18 million, which I think is more than likely, and then re-signing Coby White for less than 15.5 million. What do you think? Do you think we would have less possibilities of bringing in good free agents, decent role players for minimums, or do you think we can somehow, get the disabled player exception to help us out, the mid-level exception? What is your hot take on that? Because honestly, I don't know why, but I've been very obsessed almost with Jalen McDaniels. I don't know why, but I think he is the most versatile defender in the NBA. Well, one of at least, and I think he would fit perfect with the Chicago Bulls. Almost the same thing with being able to sign and trade Ayo Dosunmu, if that's even a possibility. I've been looking at so many scenarios and almost as if I'm the GM, but that's just my thoughts. And also the draft, and the draft has really been something I'm not paying attention to because I just personally don't think we're going to get a pick. I don't know how we would get a pick, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of just confused on what the next season will be like. I definitely do believe we'll bring back Vucevic and Coby White, but then after that, what do we do? I'm really trying to figure that out. But anyways, thank you. I love your podcast, your videos. Yeah, have a good one, man.
All right, and Josh brings up Jalen McDaniels. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. When you initially brought him up, first off, my mind went to Jaden McDaniels, who the Timberwolves aren't letting go of anytime soon. But then, no, looking at Jalen McDaniels and looking at what he's been able to do, in a very minimal role, right? On top of that, because it was very minimal. He started 3 games out of the 24 he played last year for the Philadelphia 76ers. He had averages of 9.4 points per game. He 4.3 rebounds per game, 1.6 assists per game, and 45% shooting from the field. And that was combined between his time in Charlotte and his time in Philly last season. And especially when you look at that 3-point in Philly, he shot 40% from 3, taking 1.5 per game basically. Now he took 3 when he was in Charlotte. 3 3-pointers per game, and he averaged that at about 32% clip. So again, not an amazing 3-point shooter by any stretch of the imagination, but a solid one, and one that you can't leave open like you can some of the people we've had playing power forward for us, Alex Caruso, last season. But but the thing that I look at this is 6'9", 205 pounds. Do we think that Billy Donovan is going to trust him any more than he trusts Patrick Williams? Now, Jalen McDaniels, 25 years old, has been in the league a lot longer, kind of really understands his role, I think, a little bit better than Patrick Williams. I think we can also, which is sad to say, maybe trust him to be a little bit more aggressive. But much like with the suggestion yesterday, I still look at this and say, does Terry Taylor not bring some of this? Now, he doesn't bring the shooting, right? But he's not bring some of this at probably a much lower contract for the Chicago Bulls next year if they're just looking to add some power forward depth. Yes, he's not as tall as Jalen McDaniels, and he's not the on-ball defender that Jalen McDaniels is, but he's a much better rebounding. His rebounding rate and percentage is so much higher than what Jalen McDaniels has done so far in his career. And keep in mind, I also think that this Bulls team is just cheap. So my mind always kind of go to the cheaper option. But I'll tell you what, Jalen McDaniels shouldn't be somebody who commands a huge contract either. And I do think that he is somebody that potentially we can go out and maybe try to bring in. I'm not saying that it's a bad move at all. As far as your other question, as far as what level kind of free agency are the Bulls going to operate in, I've kind of talked about it on yesterday's episode. I really just think when it comes down to this for the Chicago Bulls, it's going to be mid-level exception money. I don't know if they open up, between what they are trying to do with Vooch, what they're trying to do with Coby, I do think they're going to be motivated to sign both those players back. And and everything else is going to be, it's going to be a lot of minimums. It's going to be, kind of probably splitting up that mid-level exception, using that biannual exception. The one thing that hurts, your question about the disabled player exception, is just that even in using that, that still counts Lonzo Ball's contract against the salary cap. So using that disabled player exception can send you into the luxury tax. That's why I don't necessarily think it's common that it's likely that the Bulls use that. I would love to be surprised by that. Let me be clear. I would love absolutely to be surprised by that. I just don't know if it's likely. So I think you're looking at around the right level of free agency. I do think it's going to be mid-level exception type money for anyone, maybe even breaking that up again like we did last year with giving Andre Drummond part of it, and then the other part went to Goran Dragic, I believe. So, yeah, just be on the lookout for that. But very great question. Thank you for sending in that voicemail, Josh. Let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Brian Washington.
Hey, what's up, hey? This your boy, Brian Washington, and I ain't been watching the show lately. I kind of stopped watching the games and stuff, too, man. But I was just listening to your show, tuning in, and about the Caruso thing. Do I think the Bulls should move him? For two reasons. I don't like Caruso really that much because, to me, he's a liability all over the floor. Only thing he probably got is defense. He has a bigger person on him, so his defense don't live up when you got all these when you're playing against big power forwards. And my main reason is that I want them to move him because I know Billy Donovan is not going anywhere soon, and I hate the fact that he's Billy Donovan's pet. Because I don't like I think Billy Donovan played to lose that Miami game because you got Patrick Williams, a bigger body, sitting on the bench, and all that. And, it's just like, why you have this bigger body, better offense, can create his own offense, better shooter, sitting on the bench? So I don't like that Donovan-Caruso combination. So, yeah, get rid of him or get rid of the coach. But I know the coach ain't going anywhere, so yeah, get rid of Caruso. I don't like when coaches have their pets and they not the fucking star. You know what I'm saying? But that's my thoughts, man. And have a good one, man. God bless you.
Hey, Brian doesn't like Alex Caruso. And this is why I say all the time, and for you to say he's a liability all over the floor, no. Caruso's only a liability when it comes to shooting. The liability he has guarding other players, like I said on yesterday's episode, I don't blame that on him. That's a Billy Donovan issue with playing him out of position when we do have bigger bodies that we could use at the four. But what Alex Caruso does for ball movement on the team, right? He's one of the only players to actually follow up their shots, cut to the basket. The defense. The defense isn't something you can just overlook, right? It's not like he plays marginally good defense. He plays great defense, right? And yeah, even when he's undersized, he typically still does play really damn good defense. It's just when it gets down the stretch, it doesn't have the same impact because players have just let me use my length or just brute strength against Alex Caruso. Again, I don't blame that on him. I blame that on the coach because the coach is putting him in that position. So I'm not negative. Even in me bringing up that trade yesterday, it wasn't me. It was just me talking about a trade that Bleacher Report had presented. And even then, I still more likely than not, if I had just all things even, keep Alex Caruso just because of that defense, because of how he helps the Bulls get out in transition with forcing turnovers, things like that. And, I don't like when people, well, let me not say that, but I understand for some people, especially when they want the splash things, to not really understand the way that Caruso impacts the game. But Caruso has a very big positive impact for the Chicago Bulls in most games. But that's my thoughts. You guys can let me know what you guys think down below. All right, let's get into the last voicemail for today. This one's from Shay.
What's up, Hayes? This is Shay. I've had time to think about this, and you probably already thought about this as well, but I'm just come out and say it. The Chicago Bulls ain't going to get a new point guard. I think when we bring Coby White back, and I think that that's going to be the main priority along with Vooch, they're going to make Coby White their starting point guard. Now, look, I know that we probably need a point guard like Fred VanVleet, but I feel like with Coby White increasing his game and getting better this year, I feel like the Bulls know that he's going to get better within the offseason. So the way I see it is this. They're going to make him the starting point guard come next year. And because when you think about it, before we got DeMar DeRozan, Vucevic got Coby White. some of his highest assist rating when he first came on the Bulls. And I feel like with Coby White being that starting point guard, he will look for Nikola Vucevic much more, and that will get him more active in the offense. And on top of that, I feel like Coby White has earned a look at the starting point guard spot. That's just my opinion. Anyway, tell me what you think.
All right, Shay, will the Bulls not bring in a point guard? Here's what I'll say with that, Shay. The scenario that you painted is likely. And I think I even said this on the episode that one of the more likely scenarios for this Bulls team this offseason is for the Bulls to re-sign Coby, re-sign Vooch, maybe add some size or shooting or whatever, and then put Coby White in that starting point guard lineup and kind of bring it back in a way, right? Because they only have so much money to spend. And unless they're doing that disabled player exception and they can go into the luxury tax if the Reinsdorfs approve that, otherwise it's not really like I said, your scenario is looking very likely because they have so much that they need to add to this team with some shooting and some size. And we don't have a draft pick to kind of bring in a player. Well, we don't project to have a draft pick to kind of bring in a player that's kind of a cheaper deal at either one of those spots. I do think that it's likely Coby White's going to come back, and they may try to start Coby White, and that may be the thing of, hey, you can already see AK. We really happy with what Coby White showed last season. We feel like running him back as the starting point guard, that's really going to add a new dynamic and some shooting that we need to help change our shooting all those buzzwords that AK uses, that's going to be used if they ride with Coby White as the starting point guard next season. But let's keep in mind too, if they do run Coby as the new starting point guard, it helps them actually focus on some of the other things that they need to do. Shooting, size, right? The Bulls aren't going to address it all. And I know that's going to upset some Bulls fans because they want to see it all addressed every offseason. It's just not feasible. We're not going to address our shooting, our size, and a starting level point guard unless we find that all in one player and you're not. We just don't have the money. Or it's going to take trades to facilitate some of that. Moving on from a Caruso, moving on from a DeMar DeRozan, moving on from whatever other players, Zach LaVine, and then even then, like, what are you subtracting through adding and things like that? So the Bulls are in a situation that I don't envy, and it's going to be a tough offseason, and it's going to be an offseason where they're going to have to get extremely creative if they want to add something meaningful to this team and change this way. But I do think that it is a likely scenario that they may run it back with Coby White as a starting point guard next season. And then if they do end up re-signing Io as well, still doing that guard rotation of Io, Coby, Alex Caruso somewhere in there. Hopefully they add more size to where Caruso isn't our starting power forward, or Patrick Williams shows enough in training camp and maintains onto that starting position as well. Those are kind of the things we're looking at from the Bulls this offseason. I think that is one of the more realistic outcomes. Let's see if they can work some magic and we can get an outcome that we don't see. But that's it for today's episode of Chicago Bulls Central. Make sure you're following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for our mailbag episodes, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.